Today you're going to learn how to draw these super cute birds, and I know they look complicated, but I'm going to show you that it's actually much easier than it looks. First, you're going to find a good reference picture to work with. You can Google it and find it on Pinterest or Unsplash or whatever you find your reference pictures. You're going to look at your reference picture and you're going to start by positioning just the basic shapes on paper. So you're not drawing a bird at first. You're not drawing a wing, you're not drawing a beak, you're drawing geometrical shapes basically. So in this case, you're just drawing an oval shape, a smaller circle that will eventually become the head, and you're gonna pay attention to the basic angles. So for example, this bird, the wings are going to start with like an angled line like this, and from here you can start defining the shapes a little more and add more details. I'm starting with the shape of the head. This one has like a pointy head like this, like the feathers, they end up like in a pointy shape. The eye is usually just a basic small circle. And the hardest part for me is the feathers on the wings. So again, if you're just drawing something and it seems hard and overwhelming for you, just break it into shapes. So here I'm going to break down the sections of feathers that I see on the wings. So maybe you're going to look at your reference and you're going to see like, oh, some feathers are blue, some feathers are red, or some feathers are small, some feathers are bigger. And what's the shape, the general shape of the blue feather section? And then you're just going to mark the section and then you can add the details and turn them into feathers later. This is going to really help you nail the proportions and it's going to make your drawing look so much more advanced and so much better at the end. And now we can outline the bird with a pen. I'm using a fine line 005 ink pen, and the more delicate you are with this outline, the better. So I would avoid using a thick pen for this because like if you look in nature, you don't see the contour of things, right? So when you're drawing, if you want to get a realistic result and you don't want your drawing to look too much like a drawing, just try changing your pen for like a thinner line. I love to just contour as soon as I can the drawing because my hand sweats like it's nobody's business, okay? I know this is gross, I'm sorry, but it's the truth, and I cannot draw with pencil for too long because of this issue, because I make any drawing look like a complete mess. And now that I erased the pencil, I can finally breathe and relax and enjoy the process. So this is where the fun truly begins, my friends. So after making the bottom side of the beak super dark like this, the trick for the face is to draw these short lines following the direction of the tiny feathers like this. And if you're wondering, but what is this direction? Well, my friend, this is why you need a reference picture so you can cheat and copy it from a real bird. I'm kidding. Using reference pictures is not cheating, it's a study, okay? Anyways, just do the lines coming from the beak and around the eyes towards the back of the head, kind of like, do you see what I'm doing, right? Don't forget to leave a little sparkle in the eye. This is very important to make it look realistic and to make your bird look alive. For the legs, you're going to paint the bottom side super dark and leave the other side white. And now you can draw the texture for the upper body of the bird, which consists of these little lines again. And as you can see, these little lines are super light and delicate, and that might take a little bit of warming up to do. So I would suggest you to start where you have shadows in your drawings. Like start where it's supposed to be dark, because the beginning is hard for you to like get the control of the pen. As you draw, it's going to become easier for you. But if you want to practice on a side paper, you can just tilt the pen on a 45-degree angle and try to make these little lines. For the wings, you can make some shadows underneath each feather, and to make it look more natural, just make some sections darker than others and you should be good. Same thing with these little U-shaped curves that kind of look like fish scales. I'm going to call them fish scales for now on. Just make some shadows right underneath each curve, and you can leave like a lighter spot like on the curved side, on the bottom side. And again, for the shadows, you're just gonna draw the lines over and over. Try not to make the lines too long and don't like hurry too much when drawing them, because this is gonna make a huge difference in making a drawing look realistic in the end. For the tail, we're gonna do the same thing. And this bird, we have 3 long feathers that we can see, and we can just hatch very lightly in the length of the feathers, making it a little bit darker on top, like right below the wings and at the bottom as well. When you have like feathers that are on top of each other, like the ones that are below, they're gonna have like a drop shadow. And here I'm doing a little bit more lines at the bottom of the bird to create some dimension and make it seem like there's, you know, this shadow like underneath the bird. And I was wasn't really sure how to do the whole body of the bird, but I think the best plan for us is to keep hatching these little lines to cover the whole chest of the bird. Not sure if this is called chest, but you know what I mean. And from here, as you can see, all of our textures are in place, and we also have already like some shadows, but it needs more shadows. So my tip for you to nail these shadows down is to look at your reference and see the shadows as blocks and shapes again. I know I'm getting repetitive with the whole shape thing, but it's a magic trick and it works every time, okay? So it's kind of like what we were doing before with the sketching the shapes. But now you're gonna find the shapes of the shadows and then create those shapes in your drawings by hatching more lines and making it darker where you want. This is making sense. I feel like I explained this in a complicated way, but anyways, like in my case, I noticed that both sides of the bird are lighter and the middle is darker. So I have like this kind of like a darker shape of a shadow. So I'm shading more in the middle to create the same shadow shape. Also, if you're working with a reference picture and if you want to take the saturation down so you can see it in black and white, that will help you figure out the shadows as well. And this is our first bird. Fun fact, this bird is called a blue jay. I know nothing about birds, but if you want to look them up for references, now you know the name. And now I'm going to show you 2 more birds just so you have some more options of positions. I'm going to go a little faster on the next ones because it's basically the same thing. So our second bird is actually a celebrity. Let's see if you can guess who it is before the end. I may drop some tips as we go. As usual, we're going to start with the basic shapes. Nice oval shape for the body, circle for the head, triangle for the beak, little circle for the eye. For the wings, you can observe the angle of the main lines and draw those lines first. And this one, I'm going to show you a more detailed pattern for the wings with more feathers and stuff. So on the left side, we're going to do the little fish scales on top. Yeah, we're calling them fish scales. And now we can draw the main feathers like this. So the first feathers on the inner side of each wing, so the ones that are more towards the center, are smaller, and then they get bigger as they grow out. As your lines get further from the center and closer to the left side of the bird, they get closer and closer together, as you can see here. And this will create a sense of depth, like the wing is curved, which it is because this bird is a cute round thing. And for the tail, just draw just lines coming down like this. And after we outline and erase the pencil marks, it's time to add the textures. In this one, we're taking a little extra step, which is optional, but you can draw these 2 lines in the middle of each feather so it looks more like feather. In the first bird, as you can see, the feathers are kind of hiding, so we didn't need to do this. So in this one, we can see the feathers better. And now we're gonna shade by hatching lightly like we practiced before in the direction of the length of the feathers, so basically up and down. And again, make sure there's a drop shadow when there's a feather on top of another feather. I feel like I'm saying feathers so much. Anyways, here I'm just hatching a little more. The lines are as light and delicate as I can make them. Again, it does take some practice, but you can also use an old pen for this. Old pens are amazing for hatching, especially if you want to get a light effect and just like create texture without making it dark. And one thing I want you to notice on this bird is that the shadows are different than the first bird. So here we have the shadows coming from the outside edges of the feather, fading to white as it gets closer to the hard drop shadow from the next feather. We didn't do this on the other bird because the feathers are less visible and they are positioned like more flat. And this one, you can see that when we do this, it creates a curved effect, which I'm in love with. It looks so cute. And honestly, the hard part is to get your pen to hatch light like this. Once you figure that out, it's going to be a breeze to draw those birds, okay? And for the body, you already know what to do, friend. Do the little lines over and over. These little lines are called hatching, by the way. I've been saying hatching in little lines, but this is all hatching. Everything we're doing in this video is hatching. And I like to start by covering the whole bird so we have the textures in place. And from there, we can add shadows to make it look more three-dimensional. Just notice that the lines are not straight down. They move with the curve of the body. So it creates this like round effect that we want. Now for the tail, we can do lines that come down as this upside down V shape to create a texture, and then a vertical hatching that's like up and down for the shading. Just make sure that you leave a thin white stripe of white in the middle like this so it looks like a feather, and you're gonna make it a little bit darker around this white stripe. And this is going to give a little bit more dimension, and it's just going to make it look more like a feather. For the face, we can start with the eyes. Just leave a white dot and paint everything else black. And you can hatch as we did before. So little lines coming from the beak towards the back of the head and making its way towards the body. You want to make it darker around the beak, especially below it, and just making the front of the face darker to make it look a little bit angry, because this is the Angry Bird from Angry Birds. You know, did you play Angry Birds when you were a kid? Anyway, this is what I meant when I said it was a celebrity. I was trying to make a joke. So yeah, let me know if you guessed it right in the comment section of this video, or just comment anything. Actually, maybe even drop a like. Who knows, maybe even subscribe. That would be incredible. Well, friends, this brings us to our last bird of the day, and as I usually do, I feel like I started with the hardest ones, so I figured I'd make an easier one now. And this one is feather free. Well, not exactly feather free, but if you're like me and you're a little overwhelmed with drawing the feathers, or you just want a simple one now, this is the bird for you. We are starting with the shapes and angles, and this one's basically a ball and then another small ball on top, and the wing is folded like this a little bit. We don't see much of it, which will work in our favor because we're lazy and we don't want to draw feathers anymore. So we're just gonna draw some lines like this. This kind of looks like a penguin a little bit, doesn't it? Should I do a penguin tutorial? I would love to do a penguin tutorial, so let me know if you're interested. But moving on, this bird is basically made of the little lines, okay? It's that simple. So the only thing you need to be careful with is the direction of the lines. They basically follow the shape of the body, but to break this down for you, you can move from the beak towards the back of the head and down towards the rest of the body. And then from here, you're going down with the lines, but following the round shape of the body. It's not like straight lines, like all the way down. You're not drawing like up and down, up and down, up and down. It goes like around the body, right? Like, it's so hard to describe the slangs. But anyway, you're making the wing darker like this, and also underneath the wing. So we're working with two types of shadows: a hard drop shadow, which is like solid black, and it's going to be just a little piece right underneath, and then a smoother dark shadow that's just made of more hatching lines, just to make it darker. I also made the top section of the body darker like this to create a color separation, because the bird I was working with had different colors and I wanted to portray that, but that's totally optional. And the last tip I have for you is that, like, I noticed that at some point I was finding that the texture was looking a little bit too even and it just didn't really look natural. It looked weird. So I noticed that if I did some extra random lines that were like a little bit thicker, for some reason it makes it look more natural. It looks more imperfect, which makes it look more realistic. I don't know. I like the more imperfect look personally. And now that we look back, this bird kind of looks like a chicken now. It looks cute, but it went from penguin to chicken real fast. But I promise it's a bird, okay? Don't get confused. Anyways, this is it for today, friends. I hope you enjoyed this video. Shout out to VJ, who asked me to draw birds in many of my videos, and I finally got to do it. I hope I'm not pronouncing your name wrong. I probably am, and I apologize, but I appreciate your comment and your request. If you have requests as well, drop it in the comments. It might be my next video. Who knows? I need ideas, guys. And seriously, if you watched until now and you're not my mom's friend or someone she hired to watch my videos to make me happy, and you're actually a real person watching this video, please let me know. I still have a hard time believing people are actually interested in my videos, but I clearly need to get rid of this imposter syndrome. It's driving me crazy. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will be back next week. Bye!